Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Detonation. We've got breaking news here on the campaign trail. Millions and millions of dollars are being shifted between the Haywire camp, where they're disowning H+, and you've got this newly formed alliance. This is straight out. This is fresh off the books. Kimberly and Ben, you've decided to join forces. Why? Why are you joining forces? What's going on?
Kim and I have been working together for a little while in the course of this campaign. We've had a pretty regular kind of talks. She was a key advisor on developing some of the tax policies around the basic income, around the tax reform in the Futurist New Deal. She's been just a real friend to me in these last months. And when the idea was floated about a vice presidential kind of things, it seemed like a pretty natural choice, and we have a good working relationship in other areas. So this was the idea, and also we want to be presenting this better face of our organization, and through this unity ticket that's described in this literature. If people are probably have had a look at.
Kimberly, in your words, what's going on? Why are you joining forces?
I believe that I agree 100% with Ben, and I believe that it is sending a message for more unity within the party, and that we mean business. We're not here to just, play games or to pretend to be a party. We are here to listen to our constituents and to enact real change.
So you guys, so you guys are going to stand behind Max Moore, Natasha Vidamore, and the others. You're going to stand behind these people solidly as a united front, even though you're running two separate campaigns.
Well, the Transhumanist Party and other organizations like Humanity Plus, there's a lot of overlap there, right? We don't need to try to obfuscate that. There's an awful lot of people who are in both of these organizations, and there's an awful lot of concerns that are shared. So it would be foolish to try and set ourselves up as being in opposition to anybody who's working towards life extension and techno-progressive outcomes of other kinds. Yes, I do stand with Humanity Plus. I always have. And it's not even a question. I would leave it to others the extent to which they want to describe that. But certainly, we just had a long conversation before this about specific concerns from Humanity Plus members in good standing about what the Transhumanist Party needs to be doing. And I hope we get a chance to delineate some of those, not calling out the members by name, but describing some of those things and how we are going to work to do what these constituents want from us.
And what do you say to that question, Kimberly?
Yes, definitely. I stand behind Humanity Plus. I stand behind all of the organizations that are working towards transhumanist goals. And, I do believe that only by being united, we are going to affect change.
What the world wants to know is, why are you preferencing each other as VPs and not just combining your campaigns, into a single campaign? Is it because you have different policy issues and policy agendas that you're worried about? Is there a fracturing there on the policy line? Why aren't you joining into a single united campaign? And what policy issues do you have that you guys are still struggling to overcome?
Yeah, well, I'll take that one, Steele. So this is a conversation that's come up a few times in the course of conceiving of this primary election, because it is a rather novel thing, what we are doing as a party. This party is just a few years old. We haven't had this sort of undertaking before, and so this question that has come up is, how much should all of these candidates in this primary be collaborating? How much should it effectively be a joint operation? And my feeling is that it should be overwhelmingly a joint operation. But that's not how people look at policymakers and elected officials, and that's not how people look at people in our position, and so it's tended to have a different kind of optics. But I am happy with having some kind of relationship of this kind with every transhumanist policy club member on Earth, and certainly all of the ones in this campaign.
So Kim, so do you take any issues with Futurist New Deal, and do you have any policy issues that you don't like from there? Is that why you're not joining together as one united campaign? Why you want to keep your own, and do you think Ben agrees or disagrees with your policy issues? Kim.
Well, I think that we each have different ways that we are pursuing our policies, and I would like to see and allow the members of the party to choose which direction that they want to go. It's not necessarily that I have issues with any of his things. There are hesitancies, but there is nothing there that I consider a large enough rift for me not to support him in the policies that he has created.
Hypothetically, let's say Ben wins, Kim. What are you hesitant on? What wouldn't you stand behind him 100% on? What is this hesitancy?
I am very well outspoken about, conservation of the environment. So I definitely would like to, keep conservation at the top of the priorities. However, that's not to say that I am in complete disagreement, but I would, be a bit of a voice for conservation in preserving our natural resources.
Ben, would you consider moving conservation to the top of the Futurist New Deal agenda based on Kimberly's concerns?
Yeah, well, so there's two things that we could say of the Futurist New Deal platform about this. One is that there's language very similar to that in the Green Party, Green New Deal platform about a particular set of reforms around fossil fuels and around green energy. And so I feel that I have made some efforts to try that. It's not a perfect world for us in addressing these concerns, and that's why there's a gentleman who's recently dropped out of this race, very recently, in fact, Jay Inslee, just a few hours ago, dropped out of the Democratic presidential candidate race. And there's some things about Jay Inslee that I don't like as a policymaker, but he is a one-issue climate change candidate. And that is a conversation worth having and advancing in the most strident of terms. I will say of the other thing about the Futurist New Deal, some people are having ecological concerns about the federal land dividend and the use of these nationalized lands. 80%, or roughly 80 to 85% of the lands that are held publicly by the U.S. would be used in this way, but they would be leased to carbon neutral companies that have a specific design aesthetic. They must return them as they receive them at the end of their lease. And so there's not a serious downside environmentally of the federal land dividend and the basic income in the Futurist New Deal.
Ben, Kimberly mentioned on this show that she would be eventually happy with a post-money society. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny. Kimberly and I have had conversations about this in the context of the Futurist New Deal, going back some time. So I've mentioned this in a few podcasts. I've recently interviewed a number of found some early members of the technocracy movement who are still living, even though this movement goes back 100 years. But some of these guys were working more in the mid 20th century, and the fascinating thing about that is these guys have had a post-monetary and a different kind of allocation of resources at the top of their agenda, along with an environmental agenda that was decades ahead of the zeitgeist. We are moving now into a world where what they describe as a technate, a technocratic society that is post-monetary in most dimensions, might be feasible because advanced algorithms have progressed so far. And I would go so far as to coin a term along those lines, an algate, the algocracy equivalent of the technate, and say that that is ultimately a longer-term goal of the futurist New Deal. And it is something that Kim and I have talked about at length, that we want to be building bridges not only to near-term policy measures for setting the stage for life extension in our current regulated capitalist system, but also allowing for more dramatic advances in 10 years or 20 years as those advanced algorithms allow for those kind of systems.
Kimberly, post-money society, your agenda. I mean, that's the end goal. Are you happy with this idea from Ben? Working with him on that?
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. Ben has always expressed the desire to create and build those bridges in realistic terms. Real steps that we can take to improve the lives of people. And there are many ways that we can go about doing that. And Ben has taken the time and the effort to sit down and seriously hash these out. So I support the direction that he's going.
So, Kim, something you're big on is destroying cronyism in this capitalist state of affairs. What's your method for what? Firstly, what do you want to achieve by getting rid of the cronyism that exists in the state? And like, what's your method? Like, what's your plan of doing that? Like, because that's one of your big policies is cronyism, eliminating it.
Well, there's multiple steps. It's a little bit more than what can be covered in a podcast. But as I've mentioned, just taking steps now to eliminate a lot of the profit out of the especially the basic human needs that people require just to survive. Eliminate profit out of these sectors. And I truly believe that we can do that in the very short term. As things progress, then we will have to figure out new ways to build those bridges and fill in those gaps. But yeah, at this point in time, I'm focused on steps because I don't believe that we have very much time left. And I'm kind of sick and tired of sitting around just talking about things that we can do. The people of the United States and of the world know the steps or know what is at hand. And I want to actually take action as opposed to sitting around and just talking about it. Walk our talk. It's time for us to walk our talk.
Ben Zion, are you down with breaking down the crony capitalist state of affairs? This is one of Kim's big agendas. Do you line up with her on this?
Yes, absolutely. Again, I've said it so many times, I'm sounding like a broken record. There are outside watchdog agencies. They look at the running of elections and the running of governance in the United States, and they say, hey guys, sorry, you don't have a functioning democracy anymore. And that is owing to these kind of policies. We have a corporate estates of America, and that is something that needs to be reformed. We won't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We will make this a country that can sustain a lot more small businesses and a lot more of a thriving middle class than what we have today.
All right, so that's interesting. Is there anywhere else is there anywhere that you both really agree on, because you both know each other's platforms very well, you really agree on that I haven't touched on, or you really disagree on and you're struggling? I'd like to know either one of those, who can ever take that, and then how you're working to mitigate that problem.
Well, we were having these kind of comments that we had reviewed from Transhumanist Party members and also Humanity Plus members. And a recurring theme was different kinds of structures. This is something that's often spoke of when we talk of a policy club like a Transhumanist Party, is also setting up a political action committee. setting up legal funds to different ends. My other organization, the Arizona Transhumanist Party, has been working on a legal fund to a very specific kind of purpose in the public health. Something akin to a health services account system for transhumanists that would be allowing us to make use of certain kinds of earmarked funds and public funds, and this is akin to programs that already exist and are operating today. These concerns about the role of the Transhumanist Party itself and other organizations that might be able to do similar work have come up a few times recently. The Transhumanist Party is at a kind of turning point, and that's largely owing to the fact that we do not have Zoltan Isfin in the party anymore, and we now are having this primary. And some people are quite rightly a little anxious about some of those open questions.
Yeah, Kimberly, do you have any other points on policy that you don't like about Ben's policy, or that you want Ben to come on board with your policy, or things that you like or don't like about the Futurist New Deal and or your campaign?
Not in particular, no. Like I said, Ben is focused mainly on progressing the party, and both of us are very open to hearing the ideas of the constituents and to, taking action on those ideas. And I think that so long as we have more people who are willing to work together mindfully to achieve these goals, that we will get it done.
All right, that's cool, because I wanted to now shift to dynamics of the race, because this is kind of a breaking news story, and it hasn't happened before. I mean, nobody else has done this. You've done a press release on it. You've told everybody that you're going to do this. So obviously, you like each other's policies enough, and you can. There's enough wiggle room there. Are you initiating a pincer maneuver? Is that what's going on? You're doing a pincer on two different issues, and you're coming around the flanks on these other candidates?
Well, I wouldn't view this as a stratagem. I would view this as a product of a long-standing working relationship, and but we're going to continue to stick to these issues. And so, if that is a net effect, then so be it. Yeah.
Kimberly, are you initiating a pincer maneuver by not joining as one and keeping your two different policy sets and doubling your chances at taking the victory?
Yeah, no, like I said, I don't necessarily think it's doubling our chances. I think it is sending out a message of I'll just repeat it. What I keep saying is a message of unity, of, okay, you guys decide which way you want to see it go. If they like one of our ideas, fantastic. We are both flexible enough and mature enough to work together to achieve the things that the party overall wants to see. So it's more about maturity and flexibility.
Yeah, so there's a distinct divide now between the H plus people. This is really the big divide. It's the H plus people and the not. And this is the big divide. Are you in negotiation with any of the other candidates, and there's a lot of them now, on this issue, that you would like to tell us to the public about H plus? Are you forming alliances and relationships with other plus H plus people? I will ask Rachel if she's forming alliances with anti-H plus candidates as well. This isn't a trick question. I'll ask on the other side as well. But are you guys formulating any other relationships with other candidates on this issue?
Yeah, well, there's I know 4 other candidates who are H plus adjacent in some way or another. And these are people that I've spoken to a number of times. I'm not going to start naming names and suggesting alliances beyond that. But yes, everybody in this organization is familiar with the work that Humanity
Can you
Plus
give
has
us
done.
4 people? Can you give us any other names? Can you tell us anything about those names?
Well, I mean, I'm going to see 2 of them at an H Plus event in 48 hours.
And who are those people? Who are those people, Ben?
Those would be Nick and Charles. So that is an event that's co-hosted by Humanity Plus, Radfest, and the California Transhumanist Party. It's not exclusively an H Plus event, and all are welcome there. But it's So, and I consider Charles Holzapfel to be a friend, and I would welcome some similar kind of collaboration with him as well.
What about you, Kim? Are you in negotiation with any candidates working towards your H plus integration goals?
No, I have not personally been. But I have been encouraging the other candidates as much as they want to interact with me, and supporting their goals. But as far as, I mean, to a certain extent, what they choose to do is what they choose to do. And if that's what the community chooses that they want, then that's what'll happen. But personally, no, I have not.
Yeah. So, there's accusations that there's dud candidates running around, and I've just been seeing this as a media personality. For example, a great guy, but Jonathan Chatke is said to be a dud candidate for the Haywire campaign. Those accusations have come out a few times. Do you see stratagems on the other side, and you're working on the anti-H plus side? Do you guys see any sort of maneuvers there that you're afraid of, that you're scared of?
Well, I would say that John Chatke is not anti-H+. He's on a different part of the political compass than myself, but he is somebody who has spoken about life extension and about singularitarian effects as he sees them unraveling. I would also, and the idea that this is an open forum. If someone wants to run, and if someone wants to run and then endorse another candidate, that's their prerogative. So I mean, I have an admiration for John Chatke. I look forward to speaking with him at this debate. Same as all of these guys.
Kim, are you scared of any of the anti-H plus campaign? Are you scared that they have some tricks up their sleeve?
No, definitely not scared. That's like a very strong word to use. If they are anti-H plus, and that is the way that the community goes, okay, then that's, what happens. We go from there. As far as like Shotke, I have not taken too much interest in the things that he has had to say, simply because of the behavior that he expressed beforehand. But it doesn't mean that I am not open to understanding his political positions. But when it comes to I'm trying to stay out of the pointless drama as much as possible. And focus on.
You might be trying to stay out of the pointless drama, but the pointless drama wants to come to you because you are a candidate, and so are you, Ben, and it's coming. It's hitting me as well. I mean, we're all involved with this, and there's a lot of money at stake, and there's a lot of a world. It's the world engine it's the world's future engine. So it's all coming. But this.
Well, I don't want to turn it into the Shatke show. I mean. So this is a guy who doesn't seem to have a lot of positive things to say about moving public health in the right direction that transhumanists want to see, and all of those de facto life extensionists out there, who I believe are 98% of human beings, want to see. And anytime a concept like even a far future concept comes up like a farther future concept comes up like a longevity escape velocity, not even the policy stuff around data science and public health service, but the far future stuff he seems to be skeptical of. So I don't really know how this guy's a transhumanist. I mean, to some degree, you could say this about 2 or 3 other people in this race. But it's an open forum. He's here to make that case, and he's within his rights to do so.
Well, that's pretty strong attacking the Mises people, because there's a lot of people who are interested in Austrian economics on this candidacy role, yeah. So that's an interesting take. I know you're a left-leaning libertarian in that respect, so that's fine. So basically, the next thing is this campaign is it's interesting because this media platform here has really opened up a whole new dynamic to this whole campaign. And Ben, you've learned very fast from this, and you've utilized this very ingeniously. But doing this VP preferencing is taking this to the next level. So Kim, you're learning very fast as well. So you're opening Pandora's box. So do you think we'll see copycat tactics? Do you think somebody all of a sudden next week, somebody else is aligned with somebody else? Haywire might have picked somebody, or something. Do you think you guys have initiated a copycat tactics? Kim, you can answer this if you want. Copycat tactics on new tactics that this race has embraced over the last couple of weeks.
I kind of hope so. If they go ahead and, start teaming up, again, to me, that is just reinforcing the idea of becoming a more solid team, a more solid platform. By all means, I hope they do.
Ben, do you think you've opened Pandora's box on changing campaign techniques?
Well, I'll say we could be opening Pandora's box with criticizing the Austrian economics.
You did it.
No. As a left libertarian, I've opted to focus on the role that advanced technology and e-governance can play in moving us towards a more voluntary society. I do very firmly believe that these measures are the quickest way to then seeing the kinds of economic reforms that right libertarians tend to fix on. I will say that some of this is viewed as some great grand theory, but there's an organization run by a very wealthy right libertarian, the Koch network, and he has used his influence to effectively gut the middle class over the last 4 decades. Had this person and people of his ilk, there's a lot of other influencers in that network, and similar people of other mindsets. Had these people not had this influence over our system, the United States would be economically more like contemporary Germany than a place where we have to take nationalized lands and sell them back to corporations because we're facing a jobless apocalypse and we don't have the basic infrastructure to deal with it. That's owing to these right libertarians. So I'm not going to beat around the bush about the damage that this kind of ideology has done.
Kim, you're very focused on solidarity within the party, everybody getting along. Are you going to continue that motif? Are you going to continue that campaign of trying to work for the popular vote? Because Ben, there's been a lot of criticisms aimed towards Ben Zion's campaign that he's targeting too many of these top people and not enough of the base. And what you say? Are you gonna continue this solidarity campaign, or are you gonna change that?
Well, one thing I do want to stress is that it's not like I'm seeking some sort of artificial utopian harmony. We're all adults here. We're all very intelligent adults, and I know that we can settle our differences in mature ways and get past a lot of the nonsensical drama. As far as Ben targeting the higher people and not listening too much to the smaller constituents, I think that by us combining forces, it's actually going to provide a little bit more of a balance there. Because he has access to the larger people, whereas I have more access to, the regular people. So I think it's actually going to be work in our favor and be a lot better in the long run.
This is also just a kind of a knee-jerk response to how this primary is unfolded from people who feel. But I should say of the Futurist New Deal, it was devised to address the diversity of political opinions and goals within this community, and with life extension at the center of that. But also, I am not personally married to the idea of a 20% marginal tax rate for very, very wealthy individuals. That is basically the tax rate cap in the Futurist New Deal. But that is a concession to the diversity of political opinions in this party. And I think that for my mind, the main thing that we have to do in the near term is harm reduction. We have a collapsing middle class. Basic income addresses that. Some of those other things about a longer range considerations with making a more fair tax code will be certainly addressed in time as we have greater resources as a society to level that playing field.
All right, well, that's very good. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about along with, talking about, this move, this dramatic move to preference each other as each other's VPs? Is there any other things you'd like to talk about, Kim? Go, just hit the button if you want. Just speak on this issue if you've got anything else to say.
Yeah, no, not really at this point. I think we've covered it quite well, and I think we've established our stance here as really focusing on making progress and enacting change, as opposed to just talking. So I think I'm good. Ben?
Yeah. Well, I do want to address a comment that was made by my friend Dan, who I've interviewed before, about what I said about right libertarianism. I think in the same breath of what I have said moments ago, I should also say that anarcho-capitalism and right libertarianism has been very much a driver of some specific kinds of technologies that are key to techno progress. And nobody has a crystal ball to see the extent to which those institutions and ideologies will continue to be so. But it bears repeating. Not everything about this worldview is something that need be discarded.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. So it's an alliance building strategy. It's a vacuum cleaner strategy. It's a populist strategy. I like this. It's a very interesting maneuver that you guys are doing here. And I'm wondering about Charles Holsop. I'm wondering if he's the key to all this, to unlock a new wave of, because it really does depend on what Rachel Haywire does now. I expect to see a copycat tactic like of this sort of dimension coming out of the Haywire campaign. I'm not sure what that would be. It's too early to say. It's too hard to say what that would be. But she is the main driver of the anti-H plus in this campaign, and so I would think maybe Jonathan Shatke she might be working with, or Mr. Kurtz has just come on board, but I don't know. I'm still got a few more to go to understand what they're doing, but I don't know what the politics is. But this is a very interesting maneuver, and Ben, you are stacking a lot of those high people. Kimberly, you do have a voice for a lot of the middle, and you have two policies now, so that's a very, very strong campaign. And I think the leadership, Gennady and others, are all probably watching this very, very closely, because this is a big move here, and something that could either go very, very right or very, very wrong. But Kimberly, you seem to be willing to make concessions. So maybe if that continues, we might just see if not an official merger, a sort of a merging of the campaigns into a sort of messy sort of forward motion. But we'll have to see. I mean, maybe it'll all fall apart. We'll have to see. This is a very interesting play here by the Benzai and Kimberly faction.
Well, the Charles Holsapple, who I mentioned, I'm going to be seeing him in just a short a day or so. He's the master of ceremonies at this longevity seminar in Burbank. Tickets are still available for that, so if you're in the Los Angeles area this weekend, you should sign up for that. And there's a lot of room for us to be building bridges, not only in policy but to one another, and having those kind of good relationships. It's everything that we should be doing. I do want to say something else about the comments. There's a comment from Rachel and Dan talking about bringing new blood into the organization. The Futurist New Deal now has a group that has 1,500 people in it, and some of those are voters, some of those are on the fence. We're bringing people into this organization. The Futurist New Deal has been doing the work, the actual work of reaching out to the higher ups, to everybody else, in the form of these interviews and all of this other organizing work that I've been doing, and that people from the Arizona Transhumanist Party have been doing, that people who have taken an interest in our campaign have been doing. We are having a moment of great energy at this time, and we will be seeing more of that. And I'm really excited to be working with Kimberly in this collaboration as well. One
advantage that the Haywire campaign had over you for a long time now was Trigger Warning, which is her website, and that's pumping out a remarkable material. Also, they have campaign props, hats and shirts and other things as well, which has been assisting her campaign. So in that way, they've been different. But I know Kimberly has access to Medium, which now gives you a website platform to use and utilize. So so there you go. You have your website. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Haywire campaign does. I expect to see copycat tactics. I don't know who or what or where, but soon. I think they need to do that. All right, fantastic. Kimberly, if you wanted to say anything else, just please say it. You have the floor.
No. I think at this point we've made our point, and from here we will go forward and surprise the members with stronger and more concise policies, and for myself anyway. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you very much for coming on Detonation, or more coming all the way this week. Thank you very much. It's a very dramatic move. And there's a lot of money at play in this. There's a ton of money at play, and a ton is at stake. So people have to understand how serious this primary campaign is, and what happens out of here. So get on board and get interested, because this is the most interesting happening on the planet. I'm looking at, by the way, another interview with Kate Lovechuck. We're going to talk about Amazon rainforest. That'll be really, really interesting, because that thing is burning, and I want to address, Kim. You're talking about environmental stuff, and we're going to have that. So the environment is now suddenly coming into a mainstream debate. Because it has been in the context of global warming, but it's been a debate that's been so polarized because of mistakes on both sides of the field. The globalist side, the United Nations, IPCC, and all that was saying everything's going to be underwater in the 80s, and that just stimulates so much hate from them, from the anti camp. So people haven't taken this debate very serious. But now when they look at the Arctic and the Antarctic, where the stuff is on fire and the Amazon is on fire, now all of a sudden they're realizing that the Earth is being choked out. So Cape Ludchuck is coming back on, and that's good to mention that, Kimberly, because I agree with you. I don't think it's the top, but it is moving way into the consciousness of normal, everyday Americans and everyday people around the world, because this is a huge issue that people have woken up to all of a sudden.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you mentioned another guest. I'm having Jose Cordero on the Future is New Deal podcast tomorrow, and I'm hoping we can have more panel discussions with some of these life extension luminaries. And I'm seeing in the comments some snarky remarks. I thought we were moving away from this sort of thing, but I guess we're still doing it. But I would challenge any of the candidates, not anyone specifically, but any of the candidates, if they're concerned that the Futurist New Deal is only trying to appeal to a certain class of people, why don't you try and sit down with that class of people, if you are able to maintain a conversation with them, and talk about some of these issues?
Because I can point out to the candidates who are watching. Look at the way that Ben Zion has utilized this platform. That's a unique. That's something you can also do, and I've offered that. This is a platform that's been set up specifically for this. So you can use it and talk about things and do all that. So, but Ben has been very energetic in that field, and I thank him, because I've received great guests from that. So utilize it, use it, set up debates, set up your own debates. We're going to have a religious debate, so set up your own debates, utilize it.
That's also tomorrow night.
Make strategies, think outside the box. And this is what I do like about the Ben Zion campaign and the Kimberly campaign. And not saying that the Rachel Haywire and other campaigns aren't doing energetic things. As I mentioned, they have merchandise. She has trigger warning. She has a whole bunch of other stuff going on. But there's certain tactics, and I expect to see. But you've put yourself into a box, because now you've shown your creativity. You have to keep being creative, otherwise don't stagnate. So you've put yourself in a box there. But anyway, thanks for coming on Detonation. I think that covers it. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming on Detonation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steele. We really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It helps.
It's my favorite show.
Mm-hmm.